Welcome to Desert Island Drive-In. What? The Desert Island Gamer spin-off show with 10 toes dipped into the film Happy Lagoon. One desert island, one guest, 3 wonderful films, one woeful film, and a big screen character. It could be weird. It could be unhinged. It will have crappy sound quality, but at least it will still be short. To the drive-in! Today, welcome Richard Bazley, a dear friend, collaborator, and a man who is very close, in my opinion, to needing no introduction at all. Richard, welcome.
Oh, great to be here, Neil. Great to see you.
It's great to see you too. It's been a while, actually, since we've been face-to-face. It's often emails and...
a little while, yeah. I mean, we talk so much on the phone and on Facebook.
Yeah. I did dip in quickly to see when our collaboration started. It was actually December 23rd, 3 years ago. So we're close to the 3-year milestone, yeah.
Wow.
And in that time, two award-winning short films out in the wild.
Well, we've really packed it in.
Yes.
In a short space of time. When I think those few years ago, I've been hunting around for, ironically, a Cornish writer for
find one of them.
George and the Dragon. Couldn't get further away from that. But so when I first contacted you, I thought you were Cornish.
Yeah.
And, about my grandfather, we can talk more about that later. How time flies.
If anyone doesn't know Richard and his work, it's been a pretty spectacular life lived so far. Emmy-nominated, animating credits on massive Disney films, big animating credits on what is now regarded cult classic or maybe just an absolute childhood classic in The Iron Giant. And now an award-winning live-action director with unscripted speeches made in Cannes and a whole working with Tom Conti. You've had something of a roller coaster.
It's been a real journey from a Devon boy born out in the countryside who dreamt of going to Disney. My mum bought me a book when I was 10 years old called The Disney Film by Leonard Maltin. And it was all in black and white. And I used to flick through the book. And on the back pages, there were pictures of Disney World. That was in Florida. I said, Mum, can we go there? And she said, well, you got to be rich to go there. This was in the days before cheap flights to Miami. Little did I know, 20 odd years later, that I would be taking my mum, my dad, 6 guests for free to Disneyland in LA because I was working there as a lead animator. It all makes it sound very easy. It's not. It's been a hell of a journey, and you have to go through such... ability is part of it. And I tell people the key thing is persistence, because you can have all the ability in the world, but if you don't persist, you won't get, those breaks don't happen. And most people give up just before they're going to succeed. So all those people that have been hugely successful, they failed more times than anyone. They just pick themselves up again. I don't know how I pick myself up because I don't have a thick skin, but somehow I do. And it gives me more determination to carry on. So,
thank God you do.
It's a long, long story from being in Devon and going to the States. But I did do an art degree up in Liverpool, ironically in publicity, in graphic design, because animation wasn't really considered a career back then.
Oh, little they knew.
Yeah, little did they know. Well, it was for a short spell for me, a brilliant career, because it was very classical 2D period. And I went to London where I was working as a junior art director, and the company was taken over and we all got laid off. And I was looking around and thought, well, what do I really want to do? Advertising wasn't really doing it for me. And they were making Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And I went up to Camden where they were making it. They were making it there because of Richard Williams, the great, he's Canadian, but based in Britain, a commercials director, and he was the animation director on it. And I went up and did what's called an in-between test. And he was away that day, so I was at his desk. The in-betweens are what you do at the bottom level. The animators do their rough drawings, and because there's so many hundreds of drawings, the in-betweeners do the drawings in between. And I'd been teaching myself on a coffee table, a glass coffee table with a light underneath, to learn. And I had this book by Preston Blair and did studies, and went along and did the test. And they asked me in to do evening classes, which I did for 7 or 8 weeks. And at the end of that, after testing hundreds of people, they picked a handful of us as in-betweeners.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
That was an incredible break.
Yeah, what an amazing, groundbreaking film, too.
Groundbreaking film. And then 6 months later, we were laid off. I think it was the exchange rate. They were going to keep going, but they closed the studio. And there was no way they would take me to the States as an in-betweener. They want fully trained animators already. And immigration has to prove that they can't hire an American to do that job. So it was another 5 years. I went to Manchester, Cosgrove Hall, Count Duckula.
Classic, yeah.
I guess so. I didn't like doing it.
Oh, no.
Then I went to Ireland to work at Don Bluth Studios and became a lead animator. So after 5 years of hard graft, I applied to Disney. They passed. So I thought that was it. Now, a year later, I saw an ad in the Dublin Times or whatever it's called, and they were looking for animators. And I applied again, but to the Paris studio, thinking, well, might be a better chance there. And then I got a call the week after saying, we want to hire you. I said, great. When and where? I said, in LA next week.
Wow.
And and then within 2 years, I was a lead animator. I worked on Pocahontas, on John Smith, and then as a lead animator on Hercules, the Earth Parents Amphitryon, Alcmene, and a character called Demetrius. So that was one hell of an experience. And I ended up being in LA, not all the time at Disney, but I've been there for 7 years. I lived over. So quite a journey.
Dreams coming true for sure.
Yeah.
The whole big picture you've got, like this incredible journey. Are there any particular moments where suddenly be aware of where you are, what you're doing, as like how this is like the most incredible place to be right now? And
I mean, you have to pinch yourself and also realize it's in that moment, and you've got to try and keep going on that journey. But I guess when I was over in Cannes, picking up an award,
of course,
noise in your eye on stage,
grabbing the microphone off the host.
Nobody had done a speech before then. And AD, by the way, I should say that was Noise in Your Eye. Did the music? So it's Adrian Chivers and Daniel Panay, and they have an ensemble of musicians, including Nick Mason on drums, which is in our film. And then with AD grabbed the mic. No one was doing speeches until then. And he grabbed the mic and then suddenly shoved it in my face. So there was nothing prepared. So I came up with something. But I did have to pinch myself when I said, it's great to be here in Cannes picking up this award.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't feel, I've seen the speech, obviously, and like it feels like it's been prepared. And I know you just ad-libbed it and it was totally off the cuff. So
I'm there on the stage trying to thank everyone I can. And I have no memory for names, but... sometimes I can even forget my own name if you ask me, on stage. But what I realized when I was over in Cannes is that this entire process, it's teamwork and getting great people together. And one of the best things that's happened to me in the business was to connect with you those few years ago, and to find a writer that can take my very basic ideas and turn them into a coherent story of worth. And so both our films, Censure and Confines, would not exist without your incredible craftsmanship in your writing. I just can't thank you enough for what you've done.
Well, that's absolutely echoed straight back at you. The chance sort of encounter we had via Twitter, when it was still called Twitter, what that's led to in terms of the awards I can see just over your shoulder there, and out there, the feedback we've received has been incredible. The fact that we can both have Tom Conti down as a collaborator as well. But like
that's
you
another
said,
story there.
The biggest thing is like with indie film and with what we did, there was no financial, it wasn't driven by money, it wasn't driven by any sort of financial reward. It was just all about a group of like-minded people coming together with this like desire to make a film, because the traditional route of going through production companies and everything else is just such a headache. We just had this.
It's a massive headache. They call it development hell. And so many projects get cancelled or never get made. and sit on a shelf. And I remember Alan Parker, the great filmmaker, saying he couldn't believe how many amazing films were just sat there lying on a shelf, which makes you wonder when you see some of the films that are made, aren't very good. It's like, how the hell does that happen?
Yeah,
which we shall talk about later. But,
yeah, it's been phenomenal. And
well, the big thing about the films that we've made is that for years, as you said, I've worked on a lot of big movies, which is great, but I didn't produce and direct. And I had a small role. So Hercules was amazing. I mean, it's fantastic to have that experience, to be there, and the experience that I got. They let me direct some of the live action auditions. People would come in because we used live action reference for my characters. So the directors were there for a couple of shoots, and then they take off and say, "Okay, you take over." And suddenly the best way is just be thrown in the deep end. At Warner Brothers, in between The Iron Giant, another great film, and Osmosis Jones, which I think is a terrific film. We had 6 months. They kept a handful of us on, full pay, without production work, and they sent us to classes every day. So that was my university in film. So we had story classes with Chris Vogler, who wrote The Hero's Journey. Oh. He would come in week after week. We'd have free classes. Incredible. We'd have acting classes, all sorts. And all of that stuff has prepared me for Censure and Confines and our future films. Our own feature projects that we're trying to get made. I've had other ones kicking around for years. One with Gary Kurtz, Star Wars, Dark Crystal. Sadly, he's passed away. So I'm still trying to get that one made, called The Chimera, a terrific TV series. It's with a big Hollywood producer right now. We'll see where that goes. But I got frustrated. I had one project fall through with a very big name that fell through. And then that's when I said to John Fry, I said, look, let's just go make a film. He's a brilliant DOP, Johnny Fry.
Phenomenal.
Fantastic cinematographer. Mainly does corporate work. But I said, let's just go. We were going to do another project together, and that project had fallen through, the finance. So I said, let's just do it. Let's just do it. So I came up with a basic idea, which you developed and made work with this character with all these voices off screen, originally during COVID, as a way to make a film. Because we couldn't have close proximity and all that stuff. But when we came out of lockdown, I said to you, I said, look, I think this is a cool idea. Let's just make it. So you took it, created this incredible structure and world that we had. And we kept everything local, all in one spot. So we didn't have loads of company moves, all in the village, all in one building. And somebody said the other day, you're building the Ebenezer Chapel. It's almost like a character in itself.
That's true.
In that it's so cinematic. When we went and did a recce on and looked at the place, A.D. Chimmers happens to own that building, the composer. And we had a look, and I remember going into the bathroom and thinking, oh boy, I've got an idea here, because it's so cool. It's like a Stanley Kubrick. It's this long room. And I said to you, let's have in the bathtub with his stepsister berating him outside, and just on him with a slow truck in, and that's it, a few other cuts. And John said to me, let's have him turn around. I said, no, just keep it on him, just keep him, So that worked out very well.
Looks great in the trailer as well, absolutely.
Yeah. And the whole, if we said that in a normal building, I wouldn't give away the ending, but as we have the final scene, it's from the balcony where we've got a large area in which we can tell the conclusion of the film, which wouldn't work in a small lounge. It just wouldn't work.
Exactly.
But so I knew that would work. So
it was almost everything just came together. There were no weak links. It was all just everything clicked. One of the maddest things for me was I always remember, like, I gave you I sent the final draft of the script over, and it was probably less than a month, within like 28 days, we were getting our first award. And it was like, what the hell is going on? I remember being sat, I was having a bit of food with my wife in town, and then I think you pinged me the message saying, we won like best short film in Cannes. That was Cannes as well, which was like... But
it happened so fast. And I think one of the motivators, when you were working on the script, I talked to Tom Conti, and he said, I'd be happy to do something for you here. And I think that motivated us all. Bloody hell, we've got Tom Conti. Let's just get it done, that in the can. I said, John, let's go, grab your cameras.
Before he goes, I'm busy again.
Exactly, before he changes his mind. And I'm forever grateful for Tom Conti, just an incredible actor.
I mean,
to have done that.
Credit to have on the first film.
Amazing.
And just the fact that, like, in terms of pinch yourself moments, to know that Tom Conti was reading these lines for myself was just like...
I mean, he didn't have to do it, and he was just off after that, or was it before? Around that time, doing Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
And he's
Which
fantastic.
obviously, without censure, he wouldn't have got Oppenheimer. So
I shall say that to him. I think he'll laugh. Yeah, that's great.
Back on to other films, and taking you right back to, I guess, the acorn before you became engrossed in this journey. Are there any moments where you realised this is something special, where you fell in love with film?
Well, I think for a lot of people, Star Wars was just mind-blowing. And back in those days, there hadn't been a lot of science fiction films. I don't know if it was when Westerns were big, I forget, but Star Wars came along and blew everything out of the water. In fact, it's like a Western in space in many ways.
Yeah.
And to go along and see that, when you think how they did those effects with multiple passes, and the way they had to do it wasn't digital, it was incredibly complex. And you have those scenes with all the spaceships, the models in a warehouse in Van Nuys as they move around. And I think in one of them they even have like somebody put in like a little shoe, a training shoe in amongst the spaceships and the asteroids. But there's probably lots of stuff like that. But how they did those films back then, and in many ways, I kind of enjoy the effects. We'll talk about this later when we do the Desert Island section. The way they did those effects then, I enjoyed more because they had to make certain choices. But I said we'll go into that.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's good news, bad news. You're crawling from the wreckage of the plane on the deserted desert island, but luckily you've got what every survivor needs, and that's 3 great films to see you through the next X amount of years. Might not even be great films, but for you, they've been important, they've mattered, and they've meant something during the course of your life. You also get to choose one film that has perpetually let you down, that we burn for heat on the island, and you will get to choose a movie companion to join you on the island. But before we kick into your choices of 3, are there any films that were close to making the list but just fell short?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, it's really hard to pick out 3.
Especially when you're so invested in film as you said.
I don't know how it doesn't make the list of 3. How do you do that? But I remember Spartacus as a youngster. Now, although directed by Stanley Kubrick, I think it was his last big Hollywood film, and it put him off for life because he had executives telling him, why are you on the wide for so long? He wanted to show the spectacular. So he knows what he's doing.
Yes.
But even, he had all this exec interference. And I just remember the spectacle and the journey. And I remember as a kid, I was that young, I had Lego, and I would make a Colosseum out of Lego. And this is before you had all the color, all the rest of it. I think it was probably 1 or 2 colors back then.
Yeah.
And I painted the damn thing, but I ruined all the Lego because I painted it. And I had these characters, and I put little model gladiators.
You were all right as long as you wanted to build a Colosseum every time.
I wanted to build a Colosseum. That's one. There's the Golden Voyage of Sinbad. Made a massive impact as a youngster and teenager. One, because of the centaur in there, was just an incredible thing. Stop motion by Ray Harryhausen, an incredible creature. And I went off again, and I got a framework in why I made the framework, and then had Das clay and made the model and painted it and everything else.
Oh wow!
And one of the other things that stuck out, that was probably more in my teens, was Carolyn Monroe is in it. So I even have a picture of her signed right behind.
I've seen the picture. Yeah.
Right behind on the wall here. I met her at a convention.
Oh, wow.
But I remember my exact age because I actually went on my first date, which didn't go well because I was so into the film. But I remember I was 14. I went to see the Golden Voyage of Sinbad at the cinema.
Oh, wow. What a film!
And there's hundreds more. Oh my goodness!
There's definite adventure theme running through.
I'm just trying to make sure that I've kept my 3 when we get back. Crash is an incredible film because films are about moments.
Yeah.
And if you can remember, like A Sixth Sense, at the end of the film when Bruce Willis drops the ring and you realize he was a ghost all the time.
Yep.
Wow. You don't necessarily remember the whole story, but you remember that moment and the emotional impact that has.
Yeah.
The film's about moments. Iron Giant has that moment, but it's set up at the end when the giant sacrifices himself to the bomb to help save the people. Early on, in the story, Brad Bird put a scene in where he's sitting down with the boy and bonding with him, and they're going through the comics, the superhero comics, and they go through and they say, that's Robotron, that's a bad guy, and the robot's like a child sucking up. Is this Superman? He's a good guy. So when he's flying through the air at the end, and he knows he's going to sacrifice himself, and he says Superman in that voice.
Yeah,
literally, you're in tears. An animated film brings you to it. It's brilliant.
They're your close run ones. But what would you have as the first film that made the cut?
Yeah, the first one is because of memories and my childhood and the way things were back then. It's just nostalgic. And every Christmas, it wasn't Santa I was most excited about. It was seeing Jason and the Argonauts.
Oh, fantastic choice.
It would play every Christmas. We had no DVD, no videos, no recordings. So the only way you could see it is in the theatre or on TV. So it would play like clockwork, like the Queen's Speech every year. So that was one of the things that I look forward to, sitting down every time. And I never ceased to be like in awe of the skeleton fight sequence.
Yeah, it's amazing how that has stood the test of time, and it still looks breathtaking to this day.
Yeah. That was all done by one man, Ray Harryhausen. He made the models, he made the sets, he did the filming. It took 6 months for him to do. Now that wouldn't happen. You'd have a whole team of probably 100 VFX artists, or hundreds, scattered around the world at various, sitting at computers. In fact, I've been there. I've worked a bit on Harry Potter, Prisoner of Azkaban. Did some animation.
Oh my God! Don't tell my children, because they'll be autographs.
Everyone says how amazing that is. It is, but I'm far more excited about Century Confines because it's our film.
Yeah.
And with Harry Potter, I was one of hundreds of artists at Frame Store in London, sitting at loads of computers, and never met the director, brilliant director, Alfonso Cuarón. But you become more of a technician, and you get notes from notes, and it really wasn't for me. And that's interesting. Whilst I talk about that, I come from classical 2D animation, where the 2D animators were respected. And in the old days at Disney, they carried on until the 80s, until they dropped. The 9 Old Men, they did their best animation in their old age. With CGI, you're lucky to see a person with grey hair on a computer. It's just a different culture. So I was sitting there at these computers thinking, this isn't for me. I'm going to make my own films.
You did.
It's good to have got the experience. And if I ever make films with CGI in it, I know exactly how to do it and how it's done. Yeah.
But away from CGI, Jason the Argonauts, what a great choice. And it's something that still, I think, captures any audience now. Like, kids will sit down in front of that film and it'll still capture the imagination. They're still even like spellbound. It's such a good film.
I mean, that's
so many epic moments.
The harpies come in and he's got all the fruit that's been left to him. They come in and steal the fruit. It's so dark and sinister, but beautiful,
There's too many great moments in that film to nail it down to. But the skeleton scene does always stand out, actually, having said that. The skeleton scene is pretty spectacular. That's a wonderful choice. So we're off to a flying start, Richard. Can you keep it up with the second film?
I can. Jungle Book. Again, nostalgic reasons. When I was a kid, I saw it 5 times. I must have dragged my mum to it 5 times at the local cinema as a youngster to see it. It probably started my obsession with Disney films, And then, years later, when I was at Disney, just down the road from where I had an office there, just down the road on Flower Street, is what they called the ARL, the Animation Research Library. We called the Morgue, because it's where all the old scenes went. A lot of them had gone, but they kept a lot of the old animated scenes, the original drawings, in boxes down there. And you could, as an animator, you could request to go down and study these and get photocopies. So I would go down and study them, scenes from Jungle Book that I watched as a kid, and hold the actual drawings that were made.
That's incredible.
Now, years before I worked there, animators could walk in and say, "Can I borrow that scene?" They'd borrow it. It would never come back. Not that I'm accusing animators or whoever was there. So they soon cottoned on to that. So then you had to go down. They would come out. You had to wear white gloves, I think, to handle it. And somebody would watch you. whilst you're doing it, and then you had
wow.
to hand it back. And
Yeah,
then they
piece
give
of
you
history.
a copied version. So Jungle Book, the scenes in there, there's some spectacular work by one of the best animators ever, Milt Kahl of Shere Khan. Just phenomenal acting. The character, you had people doing film after film that stayed together. They weren't laid off after every film. And that's what you get. That's when you keep
Yeah,
teams
it's a beautiful film.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And people, and also, actually, this isn't supposed to be on this, but 101 Dalmatians, just incredible. But I could go on.
No, but there's almost like they hark back to like that classic Disney era.
Yeah.
And I'm sure for many people, both Jungle Book and Jason and the Argonauts will be sort of comfort blanket films as well. One of them where as soon as the music kicks in, as soon as the opening credits,
nostalgia,
they're transported away to magical times. Yeah, 2 for 2. No pressure on the third.
So Gladiator.
Oh, wow.
I'm a big Ridley Scott fan. What's interesting, he came from an art background. I think he art directed on Z Cars. He was at the BBC really early on, possibly Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So he's a very, very visual director. So I relate to his work a lot because it's so visual. And I'm very visual. And sometimes people think it's to his detriment, but I don't know. But I always enjoy his films. I've yet to see Napoleon, which I'm dying to see, and I've heard. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. I hope I love it. But Gladiator for me is spectacular, not just in the spectacle, but of the incredible actor Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, what a guy. Yeah.
And the theme behind it, that he is neglected and not loved by his father, Marcus Aurelius. Russell Crowe's character is obviously favored by him, the gladiator, and Joaquin's desire for love, which he can't get. So whenever you get a villain who you empathize with, it's very powerful. So you kind of like, oh, okay, I get that. I can get, you know why. So, and I remember seeing a writer do a lecture on it and how he inserted this idea that when he kills his own father, he picks him up and hugs him, and he hugs him to death.
Yeah.
He squeezes him so tight, he suffocates him. And it's very symbolic and very, again, it's another one of those moments, incredibly powerful.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And that's so for me, that's on my list when I'm on the desert island.
Yeah, it's a fantastic film. And Joaquin Phoenix is just one of those actors who never seems to miss a beat. Everything he does, he seems to be fantastic.
I would love to get him in a film, although I think I might find him quite scary.
Yeah, he's kind of intense.
He's very intense.
Yeah, I always wondered I probably shouldn't admit this, but one fact, I always remember watching Parenthood and seeing, Leaf Phoenix is in it, brother of River Phoenix, Leaf. Oh. And then I always thought, I wonder whatever happened to Leaf Phoenix, without realizing that basically he changed his name to Joaquin, and I'd seen his entire career play out. I just thought there was 3 of them. Yeah, I thought there was River, Leaf, and Joaquin, but yeah.
Yeah, and in The Joker, he's just unbelievable.
Oh, yeah,
Everything is so good about that film. But I'm adding a film there, I can't add. But just talking about Joaquin Phoenix, so...
I mean, there's probably a number of Joaquin Phoenix films that could make their own Desert Island. So, easily. He's he's at that level.
What's interesting is I was reading an interview with Ridley Scott the other day, and he was saying how insecure Joaquin Phoenix is, and that on on Napoleon, there was a moment where he's like, I don't know if I can do this. And they had to sit down and go through it, and he convinced him he was right for the part. And Ridley said, well, you know what? I'm used to this. It happens. It happened on Gladiator too. He bears his soul in his films, which is why that vulnerability is probably so amazing on camera. The same with Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah,
there's that same vulnerability. That makes them intriguing yet intimidating.
Yeah, at the same time, it makes them
on the edge,
more endearing as a person. Yeah. Because they've got the same imposter syndrome and doubts that plague everyone.
It's not your traditional moustache twirling villain,
No.
It's far more complex.
Fantastic. So 3 pretty much perfect choices. Yeah, really classic. You got a bit of everything going on there, but definitely undeniable classics.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, You need to stay warm on the island, and somehow you've managed to grab every single copy of this one film that you have always been disappointed or let down by, or it doesn't have to be necessarily a terrible film, but maybe it is. But it's disappointed you.
Yeah. Well, the beauty of film is that we all have different tastes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we all love the same film. It would be boring if we all hated the same film. So there are some films that I love that other people like, oh, I didn't like it, and vice versa. So the one that it had all this hype, and it won all these Oscars, and I thought, well, I must see it. It was Everything Everywhere at Once.
Okay.
So I watched it, and after 15 minutes, I thought, what the hell is this? And I watched some films like that before, by directors, and then got into it. Is it The Legend of Buster Suggs?
Oh yeah, the
Coen brothers.
Yeah, Coen brothers film. Yeah.
I remember watching that thinking, wow, this is bizarre. But by the end, I really enjoyed it. It hooked me in. It got me in. So there are films like that. You think, what's this about? But it grabs you. So I kept giving it a chance. I watched it half an hour, watched it an hour, and I'm like, oh my God. For me, it lost me. I understand the concept of multiverses in everywhere, and that they had to do these random acts to get them through a wormhole to the next universe to create that new reality. I get all that. And I watch all those YouTube videos with Brian Cox. I love them. Black holes and space and all that stuff. So I'm open to all that. But as soon as they had characters in another universe with Frankfurter fingers, it lost me.
Yeah.
If it was a Monty Python sketch, great. But this, well, was it a comedy? No, I don't. Is it lighthearted? I guess I don't know what it is. But I just didn't get into the characters. I didn't get into the world. I wasn't into the direction.
And I guess that's a point that took you out of.
It took me out
of the moment.
There was another.
You realised you were watching something again, and you weren't.
Yeah, I wasn't. If sometimes you get a character, I think it's like in 12 Monkeys with Brad Pitt, that he was so brilliant that you get engrossed in the character as much as the film. It carries you through. But there was nothing to it for me. Yet it won all these awards. Well, I've got a great friend who's a really good friend. Absolutely loves it. Will we fall out about it? Of course not. It's just a different opinion. We all have different life
experiences. That's the beauty of it. Yeah, it's totally subjective.
Relate to different things for different reasons, Yeah. But that's so. The only problem with trying to destroy that film is that it probably exists in another universe somewhere else. So
many, yeah. There'll be a universe where that's your favourite film. Yeah,
it'll be a different Richard. That's right.
Okay, so potentially controversial choice. You also get to choose one character from any film who will be your companion on the island, your company.
Well, quite easy actually, because if you're on a desert island, you want cheering up and good company. And I fancy a drinking buddy, the character from Arthur. I think he would be terrific company, a lot of humour to pick you up when you're down.
Yeah,
and I'm sure we could enjoy the coconut juice, and he could ferment it into something.
And a tremendous, Dudley. If only we could get Dudley Moore, if he was still around to be in one of our films.
A magical actor, sorely missed.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, a solid selection all round, Richard.
Thank you.
Before we head off into the sunset, what's next on the agenda? I know, obviously, we're working on the next shot, which will be
we do.
Imminent.
We have, as you know, we've got the feature project brewing, George and the Dragon.
Talk George and the Dragon for a moment, because the story behind that alone is fascinating.
When I was a youngster, my grandfather, he wasn't one to show off. He was a working man in the quarries, a miner. It was a hard life. They were pretty poor. Even when we bought them a fridge in later years, they put the butter on top. There was nothing in the fridge. They didn't know what to do with it. So it was a hard life, but an interesting life, because he also was a champion Cornish wrestler. Cornish style wrestling is a sort of a martial art combat sport. And hundreds of years ago, thousands before technology and TV and radio, thousands of people would turn up to these events, thousands. And they were spectacular events. Now, when my grandfather was alive, it wasn't that big, but there was still quite a number. And he went up a number of times up to the London Palladium to do displays. And he had a battle with Yukio Tani, who was a Japanese martial arts expert. And as you know, in a lot of films, it's the Rocky story. They win. In ours, it's not exactly the same, but we have a twist and we have a rematch. So I'm trying not to give too much away, but also we need to add the drama, which you're an expert at, because it's based on fact, but we need to dramatize it. The backstory, which is what you're in the process of doing brilliantly.
But yeah, it's a cracking story and all the elements. And Yuki Otani alone, the fact that I can't remember his unbeaten record as a martial artist, but it stretches into decades.
And it was incredible. And to go through all the old footage at the BFI and to discover my grandfather in actually we never knew about it was just magical. I mean, we included it, which you helped edit together.
Yeah, but like you say, we found all this old footage and all these old stories, and then the people who are still involved now, because it's still going. Cornish wrestling is still
going. It's a handful of families still doing it.
And it's a brutal thing as well. I mean, the actual fights are serious.
It's a serious thing, and I've got another anecdote to tell. When I was 18, I was out in the garden messing around with my granddad, and he said to me, he was a short, stocky man, but he said, "Come here, boy, come here." That's my best Cornish accent, I'm afraid.
That was better than mine.
And he said, grab my shirt, my shirt. He said, "Throw me." I was 18. He's probably late 70s, and I tried. He wouldn't, but he was like a tree planted, and then boom, I was on my back. And my mum shouted out the window, "Be careful with your granddad."
Oh no, that was a man who'd seen some action in his day and had some scraps, that's for sure. Yeah.
Incredible, man. Incredible.
Yeah, it's a great story.
The challenge is, which is why I suggested to you that we start with the smaller films, Censure and Confines, which we could just go and make. Raising money is always a challenge.
Yeah.
And the executives always want A-list actors and this and that.
And then we also hit the COVID backlog, like the COVID, the shutdown.
Backlog. That's right.
Left this big backlog. But in a way, it's almost like I'm glad it did now because of what we did after that, like getting Censure out there.
It gave us a chance to reset, and we concentrated on what we could make, and now what we can do off the success of these shorts is use that as a way as leverage to get George and the Dragon and other films off the ground. Of course, we have another short in development, and hopefully we can get that one made next year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, onwards to swimming pools, mansions, and glory. I don't know. Maybe a Starbucks.
Add to that swimming pools in a hot climate. I don't want one in my back garden.
Oh, yeah. Good point. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Well, I've just got to say thank you, Richard. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. Fantastic choices, as I expected, for someone so deeply embroiled in and entangled in the whole film industry. You've got an incredible story of your own. And hopefully we're only still partway through because there's a lot of movie mileage to go yet.
There's a good few years in us yet, mate.
Oh, yes. Right, mate. I will take care. And yes, we will speak again soon.
Take care.
All the best. Cheers, Richard.